Hello everyone and welcome to a series of seminars that we're doing for the launch of our new version 2022 of CYPE software. And today we're going to talk about all the new implemented features of version 2022 of CYPECAD. Today I will be joined by Amaya Gomez, one of the main developers of CYPECAD, and I'm David de Dios, architect and engineer here at CYPE. So without further ado, let's switch to the new tab here where we have the new features for this version available. And as you will see here, the first feature that we have right now is the automatic importing of BIM from a BIM project.
Just 1 second, David. I would like that the people know that we have a chat where you can write all the questions that you have during our presentation. And we will try to answer all of them, but if we can't, we will write after the presentation. Feel free to ask what you want.
Thank you very much, Amaya. As I was saying, here we have the new capabilities that have been introduced into this new version of CYPECAD. And for a long time, we've been working our integration into the IFC format standard and the integration with our platform BIMserver.center. And what we have done now is that in this version, we can import as many features as we have in our 3D modeling of the architecture of the building. So let me show you first here a building that I have modeled in CYPE architecture. And as you will see, if I start turning off the different layers, we will reveal the existing structure that we're going to import into CYPECAD. Up until now, one of the main things that we did in our exporting process was mainly exporting all the vertical elements. And right now, we've reached a point where we can fully export most of the structural system to then be treated by an engineer, a structural engineer, or another architect when we import it into CYPECAD. So without further ado, let's export our geometry here. We will export it into an IFC format that will be easily understandable with all our programs. It doesn't have to be an IFC file made with CYPE architecture, but it could also be an IFC file made with any other modeling projects like you may be using right now. So once we have our IFC file created, we have to update our model, which I've already done previously. And once you have it here in your project, once you have selected here from BIMserver.center, you will be able to upload and start importing it into CYPECAD. So I've done this previously on the background, and you will see here that back in BIMserver.center, I have a project. I have uploaded the architectural model. So let's switch now to CYPECAD and let's start a new project where we will start importing all the data that we have introduced in CYPECAD. This is one of the main ways that we have to start a project in CYPECAD, but it's not the only one. You could start perfectly inside CYPECAD with the 2D views that we have. So let's switch on the main menu and let's open a new instance of CYPECAD. Once we have CYPECAD ready to start working, what we will do is that we will start with a new job in which we'll import everything that we have exported to BIMserver.center. So let's start a new project. And as you will see, it asks us to import BIM information from a BIM model. We'll click yes. And in this case, what we're going to do is that we're going to select the project that I told you about before here, where I have uploaded my IFC containing all the architecture. Let's select the initiation architecture. And once we have it, we will continue with the main importing process. So you will see here on the left, I have multiple tabs, and each one will be used as a way of treating all the data that I have imported it and treating it to transform it into native elements that CYPECAD will be able to introduce. So let's wait for it to start loading. And once we have it, we will go one by one, setting all the different preferences for these native elements. Meanwhile, this is loading. Let's switch back to the new
Yes, the big
features tab
job.
here.
So it's going to
Let's
take
have
a
a brief
short time.
overview of what we'll be treating today. We are starting first with importing beams from a beam project, and then we'll continue with a new functionality for beams and crowning beams, as you can see here. Then we will talk about the faster frame design that has been integrated into our new version. And then we will continue with other minor interactions that we have inserted right now, like the post-tension tendons in any direction and other little improvements and corrections like the ones that you're seeing right here. Let's switch back to CYPECAD and let's see if it has already imported our beam project. Everything has gone according to plan, so let's switch to the new tab, to floor plans. We will import all the floors. Same thing goes for columns. As you will see here, we have the description already loaded from what we have here in the beam model. And same thing goes for beams. Right now, we have one kind of beam that we're going to import. And in regards to floor slab outlines, what we're going to do is that instead of importing the slabs as they are right now in sub-architecture, we will import only the outlines. So in this way, when the structural engineer goes into the final project, he or she can more easily accurately design the borders of all the slabs so they comply with the structural needs and the construction elements that are going to be used. So now we switch to the final step, and that is walls and partitions. As you can see, we can select only the walls that are going to be permanent. So in this case, I'm going to get rid of these partitions right here, and I'm going to set the other ones as structural elements that will work with the seismic and window analysis later. Okay, so let's click finish. And now once it starts loading, you will see that we have mainly introduced most of the architectural model, and we have transformed it into something that CYPECAD is able to understand as a native element. It's going to take a little long, sorry for the inconvenience. And now, as you can see here, we have successfully imported all the different elements without any incidents almost. In case you had any incidents, you can switch here and see exactly what is the offending element in each case. Now let's continue with our importation. And as you can see, we get this greeting card here where we have to set all the different codes and materials that we're going to use. This is very relevant here, the codes tab. We've been working many years to have as many reference normatives from around the world. And right now we have a very strong emphasis on bringing as many laws from around the world as possible. As you can see here, we have the latest ones from the USA, as well as new ones from Colombia, Peru, Bolivia, Romania, France, Argentina, Brazil, Spain, and so on. So once we have everything set up, we start our new project once and for all. We have here the different levels that we have imported. We will set them with some live loads and some dead loads by default, like so. And now let's switch to the final analysis of the materials that we've introduced before. These are the walls that will be inserted into the final analysis for the seismic loads and so on. So let's set them like so with all the pre-built libraries of materials that we have here. I'm going to be very brief with this. As you can see, we have many preloaded materials, and what that does is that it automatically sets all the physical properties as well as all the linear loads that are going to be inserted into the model with regards to each construction system. We are almost done here, so one final construction element and we will be ready to go. We've finished here setting all the masonry properties. And now if we switch to the column definition, you'll see that we have all the columns already preloaded. And if we switch to the beam definition, you will see that for each level, we have automatically inserted all the different elements like the vertical loads, as well as the outlines for the slabs and the aforementioned beams. As you will see, we have these question marks that are asking us to insert all the different panels that are defined by the ends of these beams. Let's see how this would work in a 3D view, like so. And once it's finished loading 3D view, you will see that indeed we have inserted as many elements as possible in regards to vertical elements as well as horizontal elements. As you will see here, we've also inserted automatically all the masonry walls that we have set as relevant for the final analysis in regards to seismic analysis and so on. And with this, we would start setting all the different panels that we have here, like so, with the slabs, panel management. And we could easily start setting our final result. So once we have got the hangout of our project, we could then export it back to BIMserver.center with one of the options that we have here on the right. As you can see here, we have the BIMserver.center tab, and we can export and update our project just like we did before in CYPE architecture. I've already done this, and if we switch to BIMserver.center project, sorry, you will see that indeed I have here a structure IFC. This is one of the main features that I have inserted right now in this new version, and that is that the new GLTF files and new IFC files are now correctly exported and are inserted with a way lower size. So it tends to be easier on the final export as well as on the final 3D view, like so, what we are seeing here. Right now I have the architectural and the structural models, and as you can see, it goes way smoothly than we have been accustomed to in the later versions. So now that we have finished with this point here in our new features list, let's switch to the dimension of embedded beams and ground beams. I have here another project to show you so. And up until now, one of the ways that we have to insert grounding beams and embedded beams is through here in the project general data tab. We can go one by one, setting which is going to be the general reinforcement for all the walls and ground beams. And with the new features that we have introduced in CYPECAD version 2022, what we have done is that now you can go one by one for each wall and set which kind of grounding beam it's going to have, or it's going to be beamless. So let me show you here with an easy introduction. Let's define a wall, reinforced concrete wall, and as you can see here, we have a ground beam panel that it's going to work with either general characteristics as shown you before, with specific characteristics I can set right here, or it's going to be, as I said before, without a ground beam. Let's introduce it like so. And same thing goes for masonry walls. As you can see here, we can have an embedded beam with general characteristics, with specific characteristics, or without embedded beams, like so. If we go back here to the new features page that we have at CYPE.com, you will see that another of the new features that we have introduced is a faster frame design. And what we have done is that we have optimized the calculus engine that CYPECAD uses. CYPECAD, it's mainly meant to work with reinforced concrete structures. And as so, we have turned it into an ever more sophisticated engine to work with way more complex buildings like the ones I'm going to show you now. As you can see here in the improvements rates, we have an overall 50% increase across the board, and it works with many kinds of jobs, as you can see. It's like, for example, this 42-story building that I'm going to show you now has turned from a 5-hour calculus work into almost a 2.5-hour calculus work, improving at 50% in time of calculus and analysis. And same thing goes, for example, for this 10-story building that has turned from 4 hours into less than an hour and a half, with a more than 60% improvement. These are one of the most casual use cases for CYPECAD, and as you can see, we're striving even more to get an adequate use of our new technologies with multi-parallel processing, with the new processors that are being launched now in the market with more than 6 cores. Now, one of the other main features that we have now added is position tendons in any direction. In case you're working with flat slabs, like what I've done here, you can set all the different kinds of post-tension reinforcements, like so, in the post-tension tab. And right now, we have the possibility to insert both flexure lines and tendons, both in perpendicular sections, like so. As you will see here, once I introduce it, it's going to show with different colors, and the colors we're going to tell us is if we are either doing it in an orthogonal way, parallel to the beams, like so, or if instead what we're doing is inserting it into a non-orthogonal way, here marked in green, like so. One of the other little improvements that we have inserted is the new variety in warnings during the analysis, and that is because we have many experiences with clients telling us that our errors are not as thorough as they should be. And right now, as you can see, we have this little addendum here in yellow, which tells us what would be the steps needed to fix all the errors that you will be shown with this window. Another of the improvements that we have is the isolation footing reinforcement checks. And what we have done is, by popular demand, we have inserted now different checks and balances for calculating all the different pad footings in regards to the dimensions. If we go here, for example, into this pad footing, we will see that indeed now in the final calculations, what we have done is that we have inserted criteria in regards to its section along the XY axis and its minimum diameter and minimum geometric ratio. As you can see, this is mostly appreciated in smaller pad footings like the ones that we're working here in this project. And in regards to foundational elements, another one of the little additions that we have here in this new version of CYPECAD is that you now have an easier access to sub and tie beams and the different beam tables right here. As you can see, we can work with predefined tables, or we can make our very own, or we can even load new libraries like so, with new references for each project that we can reuse as many times as we want. Another one of these little other improvements that we have made is calls for representing contour plots that right now are completely customizable. And if we switch back to this project right here, we go to the contour plots tab, you will see that once we go to our desired level to see how the contour maps are going to look like, for example, for displacements, let's switch, for example, to this one here. You would see that here in the color for the representation of contour plots, we can set our customized version of all the different gamuts of colors that we have here. For example, let's try with this one right here. And as you can see, this easily helps us in the final interpretation of the data that has been generated by the results tab. It works with displacements as well, with forces and combinations and the like. Another little interaction.
David, just 1 second. Could you show, because you can configure the numbers of steps in the scale also. So if you can show it, please.
Sure, thank you. As you can see here, if we go to the column for the presentation, we can set the number of steps that we're going to use. If we're going to use a grade that is stepped, like the ones right here. So in this case, let's say that we're going to switch to this gamut right here, and let's add few colors, 3 colors, for example. Sorry, the minimum is 4. You will see that indeed it has changed. And in regards to the minimum and maximal values, we can be able to set a top and a bottom value to limit the representation that we're going to use in each case, like so. Same thing goes for the displacements, like I showed you before. Now let's continue with other little improvements that we have set here in our new version of CYPECAD 2022. We have done many little fixes, as you can see, like for example, switching messages, like I've shown you here, improving the drawing of text when we switch to the reference tab. For example, if we go to BIM definition, you will see here that in the reference tabs, we can set the different references that can be shown. And as well as in the foundations through the soil interaction, we can also see at the same time how everything is going to work. This has been improved with the readability constraints that we have right now. And last but not least, we have been strongly working, as I said before, with all the many integrations of all the codes and standards from all around the world. And if we switch to the project definition, you will see that right now we have many in the works, for example, for wind loading or seismic loading. And as you can see, we've been centering our main efforts right now into adding as many load codes from all around the world as possible. We have the ones from the United States, but right now we are fixing our efforts on the British standards here that are used all around the world, especially in Southeast Asia. And by popular request, we will be adding as many more as possible from all these countries from Southeast Asia, Africa, and so on. And now, if Amaya wants to, we will have a closing remarks, and we will start answering all the questions that you have been leaving here in the chat right now.
Thank you, David. I think your presentation has been very nice. You have explained everything perfectly, so I don't have anything else to add.
Thank you very much, Amaya. We've been answering all your questions that you have been throwing at us at the chat. And as you can see here, this is just the beginning of what CYPE has for the future in this version 2022. We have launched version 2022A a couple of days ago, and we have 2022B right around the corner. And if we use version 2021 as an example of what we have done in the previous years, you can expect up to 100 new improvements and changes for the new versions, especially the adding of new technical codes from all around the world. Because right now we have a focus in internationalization of our company, especially with British standards and the American ones, because they are the ones that are mostly added from around the world. So in case you have to have any more inquiries or you have any more questions that we haven't been able to answer right now, you can always reach us at support@cype.com. And I hope this presentation has been useful for all of us. Thank you very much for your attention, and hope you will see you soon.